intimidated? Let's intimidate those writing styles. Hey yo, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer-parent things. This week I'm going to be talking about writing with co-writers. Please remember that my experiences are not necessarily universal and I make my videos based on my experiences. Take what you can, leave what you can't. Co-writers are what happens when two writers decide to write a story together. Generally, this means that both writers have equal rights to the story, and thus should be making decisions together. Now, co-writers can either take turns writing chapters, they could write companion novels from different characters' perspectives in the same story, or if they really want, they can alternate between writing each paragraph. Whatever way they want to do it. So long as they're collaborating together, they're co-writers. Now, if for whatever reason one of them chooses not to continue with the project or life things come up and they just have to quit the project, some legal issues can arise. Also keep in mind that a co-writer is not the same as a critique partner. I've made an entire video dedicated to critique partners that I will link for everybody. But in short, critique partners give you notes to improve your story while a co-writer actually writes it with you. A couple reasons to work with a co-writer could be as simple as they have different strengths than you do, or they'll bring another perspective to the table. They will also know the world and the characters as well and in depth as you do. Or perhaps you just want a difference in narrative voice and, well, having two different writers will definitely achieve that. Especially if, say, you're doing companion novels, one person's writing main character A and the other person's writing main character B's perspective. My favorite book that was co-written was actually by two authors who could mimic each other's styles well enough that it was really hard to tell the difference between them. And honestly, I probably have no idea which of them wrote some of the parts. Which really begs the question, what makes a good co-writer? Especially since you have to put a lot of trust into another person. Storytelling compatibility, because let's face it, if your co-writer and you have different priorities for the story, then things are going to get really messy. I advise a lot, and I mean a lot, of discussions on just who the main characters are. What are their arcs? What's the purpose of the story? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Is one character smarter than the other one? Richer? More skilled? More talented? Who's the better fighter? Is either going to be more of a main focus in this part of the story? What about when they get to this other part of the story? It's very important, vital, to be on the same page about everything with your co-writer, to make sure that you stay open-minded to their suggestions and accept that not all of your own are going to be home runs. But also, don't just compromise to the point that the story literally has none of your own ideas or desires in it, because that's not fun either. This could be my personal preference. However, I believe style adjustment is an important, dare I say, vital skill if you're going to be working with a co-writer. And I know everybody's writing style is unique to them. Their narrative voice is extremely personal and nobody else can imitate it, right? Except that ghostwriters have been doing that for decades, possibly centuries. Ideally, to me, co-writers are going to be able to meet in the middle with their styles so that the writing as a whole flows together. Because, let's face it, if it's too different, it could be very, very jarring. It's crucial for every writer involved to respect each other on a professional level. Each writer is bringing their unique skill set, experiences, and knowledge to the table. It's not fun at all to be treated like your experience and skills are lesser than they are. On that note, anybody who wants to co-write a story together should probably be on the same skill level or at least close to it. If one writer is drastically more experienced or skilled than the other one, then egos might clash. Defenses may rise. Maybe the less experienced writer takes the more experienced one for granted. There's a lot of reasons that this could go bad. Whew. Now, why can I talk on this subject? Well, I've had co-writers. And you all know who they were? I have had two different co-writers. The first one was my now husband. We wrote the Legend of Zelda fanfiction together. and it was one of the best experiences of my life. We had so much fun fleshing out the world, creating new characters for the story, deciding what we wanted to do with the lore and the plot arcs. I mean, it probably helped that it was a fanfiction of a game series we both really love, but I genuinely don't remember any big fights or disagreements that we had. Back then, we could replicate each other's styles pretty easily. It was kind of a fun game for some of our readers to guess who wrote which chapters. I'm not sure if we still could replicate each other's writing styles. It's been a while since we tried. My other co-writer and I worked very differently. While we collaborated on the story as a whole, I wrote the first and second novel pretty much on my own, with him just approving of what I had written. Now, the partnership was not nearly as smooth. There was a lot of bumps in the road, and there's still some main plot points that we didn't really agree on. I feel it's important to point out two key differences between these two partnerships. One, I'm more compatible with my husband in general than I am with my co-writer. Two, my husband and I were working on a fan fiction, which was lighthearted, and we just had a lot more fun. We could be goofy with it. My co-writer and I were working on a novel together that I wanted to publish. The differences in mindsets probably added to the differences in how we worked together. No, I would not actually recommend working with a co-writer. Yes, I did say that one of my experiences was one of the best in my life, and it can be amazing. It can also lead to really explosive arguments and fighting. Not to mention, there is a lot less freedom with your story when you're working with a co-writer, and having your hands tied at specific plot points or character arcs can be so frustrating. Also, if something big happens in your co-writer's life, I mean good things, bad things, they got married, they're having a baby, they bought a house, they lost their house, they lost their job, a death in the family, whatever it is that they have to stop working on the story to take care of, that means that you can't work on the story either. Not really. And while yes, it is very understandable for the co-writer to put their life first and to put the story on hold, it's still very disheartening to not be able to work on a story that you're passionate about because you have to wait for somebody else. Now, if some people want to co-write and they can make it work, awesome! Kudos to them! Like I said, I have a series that was co-written that I really love to read. It's just not something that I can personally recommend. I genuinely don't know if I would ever be willing to co-write again. I mean, yeah, co-writing with my husband was one of my favorite experiences in my life, even more than a decade later. And I know a lot of people would advise against writing a story with your spouse, but Chris and I met through writing. It's always something that we've both been passionate about, and our stories and writing style really complement each other. So, I don't know, maybe someday in the future, I'd be totally down to co-write a story with him. I don't have any new co-writing projects planned, and outside of my husband, it would take a hell of a lot to get me to agree to co-write a story with somebody. But you know, I'm a firm believer in never say never for some things, so who knows what the future holds. Before anybody asks, no, absolutely not. I am not taking applications. Do not email them, do not comment them, do not DM them, just do not ask. I don't have time. I barely have time for my current whips and critique partners and betas, and they are all my priorities right now. Plus, I really just don't have interest in co-writing with anybody at this point in time. Alright everyone, that's all I got for you this week. Have you ever worked with a co-writer? Are you interested in working with a co-writer? Or do you just want to share your thoughts on co-writing in general? Then go ahead and leave a comment down below. I host live streams at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Mondays, and I upload these videos every week. If you like this video, want to see more, maybe like, subscribe, and ring-a-ding that bell. Remember, if you're curious about my writing, folks, I have sample on my website here, samanthaalnasset.com. Or if you just want to stalk my social media, that's cool too. I've got Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. Alright, that's everything, so Sam out.